I get questions all the time about when, if, and how overtime should be paid. Sure, there are a lot of moving parts, and California is a bit unique, but I'll break it down for you step by step. Stay tuned. Hi entrepreneurs, I'm Vicky Brown, and you're in the right place if you want to engage your team, boost your business, and grow your leadership muscle. In this episode, I'm going to give you the skinny on overtime, who gets it, when they get it, how it's calculated, and a little known quicksand pit about bonuses. So, first off, who gets overtime? Any position that's classified as non-exempt is eligible for overtime. I did a detailed review of job classifications and what qualifies as exempt versus non-exempt in an earlier episode. I'll list it below, so be sure to take a look when you're done. When a job is eligible for overtime, it means that employee will be paid a premium amount, usually at 1.5 times their regular rate, for any extra work. Now, how and what qualifies as extra can be different state to state. At the federal level, overtime kicks in if you work more than 40 hours in a work week. That's why it's important that you define what your work week is. For instance, if you determine your work week starts on Sunday and ends on Saturday, and then you have an employee who works 40 hours Monday through Friday, any time they work on Saturday will be more than 40 hours in that work week, so it will be overtime. However, if the same employee works 40 hours Monday through Friday, but the company sets the work week as starting on Tuesday and ending on Monday, then hours worked on Monday would actually be part of the last work week. So you could work Tuesday through Saturday and theoretically not trigger overtime. So, I bet you're saying to yourself, why wouldn't all companies just set work weeks that start and end in the middle of the calendar week? Well, because in most cases, people are off on the weekends, so changing the work week wouldn't really make much difference. But how you set your work week can be an important point for some businesses, so keep it in mind. Also, I mentioned that the over 40 rule is set at the federal level. Well, as you might guess, various states have developed their own rules as well. For instance, in Colorado, employers have to pay overtime for anything over 40 hours in a week or 12 hours in a day. And in California, we have to pay overtime for anything over 40 hours in a week, or 8 hours in a day, or the first 8 hours on the 7th day worked. And if the employee works more than 12 hours in any day, that additional time is paid at double their regular rate. It's called golden time for a reason. Employees also get golden time for anything worked beyond 8 hours on the 7th day worked. Again, another good reason to think carefully about when your work week begins and ends. So, how is overtime calculated? Well, the easy answer is you take the employee's regular hourly rate, multiply it by 1.5, and voila, overtime rate. Or you can multiply it by 2 to get the golden time rate. So see, generally pretty simple, right? Well, not so fast. What if the employee does 2 different jobs in the same work week, both at different hourly pay rates? Well, then you would use something called a weighted average to figure out what is the base rate to use for overtime calculations. It goes a little something like this. Let's say I work 10 hours at my $10 per hour rate job, so that's $100. And then for the same employer, I work 40 hours at my $20 per hour rate job. That's $800. So in total, I'm getting $900. But 10 hours of that time should be overtime pay. So you divide the total amount I'm paid, $900, by the amount of time I worked, 50 hours, and you end up with $18. $18 is my weighted average rate. Now you multiply 18 by 0.5 and multiply that by my overtime hours, which were 10. That all equals $90. So the total amount that I'm due is $990. Now again, different states have different rules around using weighted averages or not, so double check with your state. Speaking of rates, the feds have a little known and little understood rule around bonuses and overtime eligible employees. If you give a non-discretionary bonus to someone who's eligible for overtime, that bonus actually changes their rate of pay, and so it also changes their overtime rate. Let's break this down a little bit further. First off, What is a non-discretionary bonus? If a bonus is based on a predetermined formula, like an individual or group production bonus, or something based on work quality or accuracy, it's non-discretionary. It could also be something based on attendance or safety. When an employee knows about and reasonably expects the bonus, generally it's considered non-discretionary. So back to the example. If you give a non-discretionary bonus to an overtime eligible employee, you have to factor that into their overtime calculation. Then you have to recalculate all overtime for that period. And by the way, the period covers any amount of time the bonus covers. So if the bonus is quarterly, you have to recalculate all the overtime for that quarter. And if the bonus is annual, you have to recalculate everything for that year. Now the good news is that if the employee hasn't worked any overtime, you don't have to recalculate anything. Now, two of the most popular questions I get are, if the overtime wasn't authorized, do I still have to pay it? Yes, you do. If your policy is that overtime has to be pre-authorized and someone works it without any authorization, your only recourse is to take disciplinary action, but you can't just not pay them. So go ahead, put them on warning, and if it keeps happening, you might even end up letting them go, but you still have to pay the overtime. And finally, can my employee waive their right to overtime? Absolutely not. There isn't any type of side agreement you can make with your employee to allow you not to pay overtime, particularly in California. Oh, and one more thing. Make sure you pay all overtime in the pay period that it's earned. Waiting 2 or 3 pay periods to pay it out is a big no-no. That's it. Overtime in a nutshell. Let me know in the comments below if you have questions about how or when to pay overtime. If you found this information helpful, please subscribe and share. And remember, your inspired leadership is the secret sauce to having a high-performance team and a wildly successful business you'll love. I'll see you next time on Leader's Journey. You had a vision and started a business, and now you're totally overwhelmed. There's just too much to do all the time. The business isn't growing as fast as you would like, and you're beginning to have doubts that you have what it takes to build the business you imagined. In my new book, Sing with Your Opera Voice, I'll share my journey from solopreneur to 7-figure serial entrepreneur and guide you up and out of the chaos. It launches on Amazon on October 16th. Get more details at singwithyouraoperaVoice.com.